Money in the Bank already has a big fan theory around it, so we'll see what that's about. We'll also see how this affects Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez, and more. Starting things off with this exciting and interesting theory involving Money in the Bank 2026. The Money in the Bank event itself is happening a bit later into the calendar in 2026, but that's not stopping fans from coming up with some theories and wondering if this could be the direction they're going in. And for this particular fan theory in particular, we'll be looking at the women's 2026 Money in the Bank contract and a cool potential route for it that the community is buzzing about. A big theme in 2026 was the story of the Judgment Day wanting to climb back to the top of the WWE and collect as much championship gold as possible. The Judgment Day is a long-time faction that's been around since 2022, and in those few years of their existence, we've seen them have some pretty incredible peaks and eras. Like in late 2023, where the Judgment Day was holding both sets of tag team titles, the Women's World title, the Men's Money in the Bank contract, and the NXT North American title all at the same time. The group was absolutely on fire. Every single member was covered in gold and having the biggest success of their entire careers. The Judgment Day was starting to mark their place in history as one of the most successful factions of all time. And their success did continue into 2024, where, for a period, they were in control of both the men's and women's world titles, and the tag team titles as well. Even throughout 2025, they had the men's tag team titles, the women's tag team titles, and Dominic with his 2 titles as well. Always a lot of success and a lot of championship gold being won in the Judgment Day every single year. But getting into 2026, the year started to slow a bit down for them. Especially after Dominic lost his intercontinental title, the entire group was down to just 1 championship, and that was Dominic's AAA title. But WrestleMania 42 saw the Women's World title return to the Judgment Day after Liv Morgan defeated Stephanie for the title. And now, just recently on Raw, we saw Raquel Rodriguez finally break through and win the Women's Intercontinental title. So, just like that, in a matter of months, the Judgment Day went from having 1 title right back up to having 3 total titles again, inching closer and closer to their desire to once again have all the titles within the Judgment Day. And how can the Judgment Day secure another title and bring 1 more into the group? Well, how about the Women's Money in the Bank contract going to Roxanne Perez? 2026 has been a horrific year personally for Roxanne Perez. Here we are talking about all the success the Judgment Day is having lately as a group, but individually, it's been a pretty down year for Roxanne Perez. In the entire year of 2026 up until this point, she only had 1 televised win on the main shows, and that was a tag team match back in April. Outside of that 1 individual win, it's been loss after loss for Roxanne all year long. And at first, the community guess was they were putting Roxanne on this massive losing streak in order to get her character to wake up a bit and start to distance herself from Liv Morgan and the Judgment Day. And that still may be true, but now a new theory is entering the equation here, and it's the theory of, could this massive losing streak for Roxanne be setting up a Money in the Bank contract win? Because we know that's something WWE has done in the past many times. A superstar will be having a down year, nothing is really going their way, and they suddenly win the briefcase and they're right back on track again. So now you have fans wondering if that could be what they're doing here with Roxanne Perez. Was she on a big losing streak in 2026 because she's about to break through and win the 2026 Women's Money in the Bank contract? That'll definitely be a big way for Roxanne to flip her year around for the better in a heartbeat. Not only would the briefcase be a huge win for Roxanne, but bringing that Money in the Bank contract into the Judgment Day would really raise the tension amongst the women of the Judgment Day. Instead of being happy for Roxanne's big win, Liv and Raquel may be a little uncertain and bothered by Roxanne's Money in the Bank contract win, because that contract can technically be cashed in for any women's title. So if Liv and Raquel hold on to their respective titles, they're gonna naturally feel a bit threatened by the fact that Roxanne is standing right next to them with this contract that can technically be used on either one of them at any given time. Instead of the Judgment Day being happy that Roxanne is Miss Money in the Bank, they're going to be pretty paranoid about Roxanne potentially cashing in on them when they least expect it. So that could make for a very interesting triangle dynamic there amongst Liv, Roxanne, and Raquel. Maybe the idea would be that Liv and Raquel would be pushing Roxanne in the direction of cashing in on the WWE Women's title so that the Judgment Day would have control of 3 separate women's titles in WWE. But of course, the obvious twist is that Roxanne won't use the contract on an outside champion. She'll likely use it on Liv Morgan in an unexpected moment and will become the new Women's World Champion in that fashion. That creates an exciting amount of cash-in and an epic betrayal simultaneously taking place in the same single moment. Roxanne finally breaks free from the Judgment Day and Liv Morgan, and she does it in the exciting fashion of ending the tyrant reign of Liv Morgan with a cash-in. This is the theory that a lot of fans are discussing at the moment, and if executed right, it does seem like it would be a pretty fun story to see unfold. The elephant in the room, though, is the big negative thing about this specific scenario is that it's a bit too similar to the storyline Tiffany Stratton went through back in 2024 and 2025. That was a story that featured the sidekick, Tiffany Stratton, winning the briefcase and creating an awkward dynamic where she was paired up with the current women's champion at the time. So we can't ignore the fact that this Roxanne Money in the Bank cash-in theory is a bit too similar to that Tiffany story. But then again, maybe they don't mind the repetitiveness, so maybe there still is a chance something like that could still take place. The Money in the Bank contract itself is in October this year, so there's still quite a way to go until that event unfolds. We'll have to see if Raquel and Liv will still be holding on to their respective titles by the time October rolls around. That's definitely another very important part to consider here. But either way, it would be exciting to see Roxanne win that contract and start turning her year around in 2026 and taking it in a better direction. But what are your thoughts on today's stories? Leave your comments below, don't forget to subscribe with all notifications on, and leave a like if you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, guys.